the end of Alzheimer's. And it really isn't the end of Alzheimer's. It is the end of metabolic dementias if it's caught early enough. And that's where the issues are. The issues that people have had with his book saying it's, Alzheimer's is going to be a thing of the past, is because if you catch it early enough, you can, but they left out people who are too far gone. He says it's kind of like being on a hill, and as they go down the hill, it's really a lot harder to get them back up the hill. If they're barely on the edge, then it's really easy to bring them back up.
Right. Welcome, everyone. Leslie is missing today, and so I am trying to get things going here, organized. So bear with me. I'm going to try to get us on Facebook. Let's see. No, not there.
So Leslie isn't exactly AWOL. She's just, we gave her leave.
Yes. I see a live stream to YouTube option, but I don't see anything about Facebook. So we're just going to have to not be on Facebook today.
Darn.
So, oh well. All right. That's what happens when I'm in charge, I guess. So, well, welcome everyone. Dr. Saunders, I'm just going to let you do this. Like, you've done this over 200 times. So,
over 200 times. And so is there anything that I haven't said yet in 200 and over 200 webinars?
There's always something new. Yeah.
There's always something new. So we were talking about brain health and how to keep your brain healthy. And let me tell you, Joe, that is so important. If you don't keep your brain healthy, who cares if your body's healthy? I had, my grandfather had a pretty healthy body, and he had Alzheimer's disease, could not remember who his wife was, and definitely didn't remember me. And so we took care of him in his house, and it was really hard because he had a healthy body, and he's running down the street with no clothes on, and we're running after him trying to get him in the house, and he's like, leave me alone. And he was healthy enough to push us away, and when he had Alzheimer's. So you want your brain to be healthy. Yeah, you want your body to be healthy, but for heaven's sakes, why is this important, and why are we bringing it up on a webinar about type 2, right? Diabetes. What has that got to do with it? The number one cause of dementia in the United States right now is diabetes type 2. It's insulin resistance. It's not what you're thinking. It's not just because the blood sugar is high. The high blood sugar is a secondary cause and not the primary cause. The primary cause is insulin resistance. So you can have high blood sugar and not have insulin resistance, and not get dementia from type 2. So some people do and some people don't. So we're going to talk today about how do you prevent that from happening to you? How do you keep your brain healthy? So why in any case, why does the brain have a problem? There's really one primary cause. If you look at everything from toxicity to nutrient deficiencies to diabetes, to whatever cause of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, any of those issues, there's a primary problem, and that is energy. If the brain doesn't have energy, it doesn't work. And so what happens is, when you have type 2, you get insulin resistance, and what that does is causes your insulin receptors, which are glucose transport proteins. That's what they do. They transport glucose. Why? Because you have a membrane made of fat, and sugar is water soluble. It doesn't dissolve in fat at all. And I don't care what you talk about ice cream. It's not dissolving in the fat. It's just mixing it up with the fat. So the sugar can't go across the membrane. It can't get from the blood into the brain. It can't go across there. So how does it get across there? Well, you have these proteins that are insulin type proteins. Are called glucose transport proteins that grab on to the glucose and bring it into the brain. So it's physically bringing it across a membrane. And we're not talking about, one or two like you're watching me do this. We're talking 1,000 a second. We're talking that's how, like, they're like, if you've ever watched your thousandth of a second watch go off, and you can't even count, you can't even see all the numbers, it's going so fast. But that's the way enzymes work on a molecular level. That's the way they work. So you're getting thousands across in 1 second. So there was a study done on rats. And these rats had a certain amount of glucose transport proteins. And so then they did this experiment where they made the rats hypoglycemic, low blood sugar, 40. So if any of you have ever tested at 40, my father-in-law one time was visiting us, and he has type 2, and he injects insulin, and he injected insulin but didn't eat anything. And he goes, I don't feel good. And what's your blood sugar? I don't know. So he tested blood sugar, was 33. And he was like ready to pass out. And he couldn't eat anything. He couldn't drink anything. So we had to call the paramedics, and they had to give him a shot of glucagon to get his blood sugar up. So low blood sugar is pretty bad, and it could cause even a coma in some people. So 40 is pretty low, but not low enough to cause a coma, but enough to cause headaches and hypoglycemic and feeling like fatigue and weakness and all that. So they gave these rats blood sugar. They give them insulin until their blood sugar was 40, and they kept them at 40. And for 3 days, they stayed at 40. And then on the 4th day, they're up running around and everything. They check their blood sugar, still 40. What the heck? Now these rats, their brains are functioning with hypoglycemia. How does that happen? Well, they did a biopsy of the blood-brain barrier at that point, and they found that they had 10 times the number of glucose transport proteins that are bringing sugar into the brain. So even though the blood sugar was low, those transport proteins are just sucking sugars as fast as they can into the brain. So the brain, by that time, had normal blood sugar. It took 3 days to get there. So your brain just needs glucose. And if you have high blood sugar and insulin resistance, you could have blood sugar in the 300s, and if you don't have enough glucose transport proteins bringing it into your brain, then you get hypoglycemia in the brain. That's the weird thing. And so some of you have had problems with that when you're averaging really high, like 200, 300, it's always high. And then you bring it down to normal. You go, I'm going to do phase 1 of the program. And you go, oh my gosh, my blood sugar's normal. It's 100. And I feel horrible. Why? Well, because that's relative hypoglycemia. You don't have enough glucose transport proteins for a blood sugar of 100. Your glucose transport are for blood sugars of 300. So when you bring it down, all of a sudden you can have that. But guess what? Just like the rats, that's good for you. That's how you get those proteins to be made to bring more glucose into your brain. So why do people get dementia and Alzheimer's disease? It's because of that insulin resistance, and they have low brain glucose. Low brain glucose. Their blood glucose is just fine, but the brain isn't. So what happens is the brain starts shrinking down because it's losing cells faster than normal. You always have a certain number of cells that are getting lost, like millions every day. But we're talking now you have billions losing every day, and the brain actually shrinks down, and you're losing abilities as that happens. So what do you do to prevent it? Well, and it makes sense if you know why it happens. You got to get those glucose transport proteins working. That's the key. And how do you do that? Well, the rats already told you how to do that. You get hypoglycemia. So that when you're on phase 1 of the program, what are you doing? You're increasing the number of glucose transport proteins. That's what phase 1 is, because you're not eating enough sugar for your body every day. So you're not even eating enough sugar on this program for your brain. Your brain can't even, because your brain has to have sugar. but you're not getting enough. So what happens? Well, the blood sugar starts dropping down, and then it takes 3 days, remember, so this isn't something that happens like in an instant. Your brain starts making more of those glucose transport proteins as the blood sugar starts dropping down. And that's our primary way of preventing you from getting dementia when you have type 2. And so that's why the program's so important. And people think, oh, I'll just take a cinnamon supplement, or I'll take Cinechroma or whatever. And that's not the answer for everyone. For some people who are deficient, yeah, that's the answer. But if you're toxic on sugar, that's not the answer. You still have to do phase 1 of the program.
Well, good stuff. All right. So the brain, I was thinking, like, I like the analogy that you've used in the past of like the kitchen sink and insulin and mopping things up. Like, do you have an example of, like, maybe if you were to use like a car, like how would you explain how a car might not work properly comparatively? Like, what is it about, in a car that would act as the brain and then isn't getting a certain amount of fuel or charge or anything there?
Okay. So your engine is what runs the car, and if I was driving through Las Vegas one time, it was 99 degrees, and the car, we were in the middle of an intersection, and it just went boom, it just died. And I'm like, what the heck? And so we pushed the car into a service station, and they said, oh, it's probably your fuel pump. That's the problem right there. You're not getting fuel because you don't have a good fuel pump. It's going to be $200. Well, I didn't have $200 with me in those days. I was a poor college student. So I pushed the car another block to another service station, and the guy says, it's probably, no, I don't think it's your fuel pump because it just died like that. It could be like the fuel filter. So he checks fuel filter. No, it's not that. If it died suddenly, it could be an electrical problem. So he looked at the fuse box. Certainly not. Sure enough, it was the fuse to the fuel pump. So he just replaced the fuel. 50 cents. 50 cents. The guy sold me $200. This cost 50 cents for me to fix, and I drove away and never had a problem since. So if your car is not functioning, if the engine won't run, if it won't go anywhere, if you know the right problem, if you're not getting electricity to that fuel pump to get the fuel to the engine, then it just isn't going to work until you get the electrical systems working.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, a little housekeeping here. So thanks for joining. This is the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar, episode 200 and I don't know exactly what number it is, but we've been coming to you live for 4 years now. I think since 2019. Every week, Dr. Saunders shows up and teaches and helps people that are on the journey with the Diabetes Solution Kit from Barton Publishing. And if you're watching this and you don't know what that is, you can go to bartonwebinar.com, and we've got our products there. The Diabetes Solution Kit is like the Bible of reversing type 2. And of course, we give a disclaimer that this, the webinar here is for general information purposes. Dr. Saunders is not your personal doctor. It doesn't know your specific situation. And so, of course, anything you learn on here, you want to talk to your own health practitioner about first. But that's really, I've been working with you since 2007, and we've seen thousands of people that have reversed type 2 that have done a lot of different things that don't have the brain fog and different memory issues and related to that. I mean, like sugar and blood sugar and diabetes, type 2 diabetes affects like your entire body, like in so many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and the body's all about energy. So if you don't have an energy system, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. And so we've talked a lot about how to get your blood sugar into normal range, your A1Cs, and a lot of that is really just following the basic principles And, whether it's your brain or your heart or your other organs or your eyes, all of it can be improved for the most part when you follow the diabetes solution kit in the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 program. So, which, yeah, it's pretty simple. It's lower your carb intake to 20 net grams a day. And we have recipes and grocery lists and these webinars that teach you how to do that. And I like to talk about the stacking effect and all the different things that you can do that help, build on that. So it's your food intake, it's avoiding things like artificial sweeteners, and, that might say 0 carbs, but also affect your insulin levels. Also reducing stress. A lot of times stress alone can cause type 2 and other issues. And you can, if you, like you talk about the woman whose daughter lived with her and they didn't have a great relationship, and then she moved out and magically her, diabetes went away. So things like that. And then the 6-10 reset, which is going to bed on an empty stomach at 10 o'clock at night. And so each of these things that you can stack on top of each other are just going to help you feel better and improve things. Detoxification is another thing. And then adding nutritional vitamins and minerals that you might be deficient in, which is why we have different supplements like our best-selling Cinechroma blood sugar supplement, which has chromium and cinnamon bark and vitamin D, vitamin K, selenium and vanadium. And so it's just like, these are the things that your normal doctor typically isn't teaching, and things but Dr. Saunders has been teaching it and seen thousands of patients that have had success with it. So anyways, that's a quick lowdown for the new people here. And we love taking your questions here. We're here till the top of the hour. Dr. Saunders is happy to start answering your questions here. So if you are with us on Zoom, you can enter those in the Q&A section. And Dr. Saunders, do you want me to read them, or you want to just go for it?
Oh, go ahead. You read them.
Okay. All right. Carl asks, when should I take my blood glucose reading?
Oh, well, it would be great if you had a fasting blood glucose. So in the morning before you eat is a good time to do that. There is a morning effect, the dawn effect of blood glucose, because your cortisol level from your adrenal glands goes up in the morning, and that makes you insulin resistant, so that the blood sugar tends to go up. But even that is an indication of insulin resistance. So it's okay. Just the morning fasting before you eat, ideally it should be between 70 and 90.
All right. I'm just typing something in the chat.
Or between 4 and 5 if you're from Canada. So 4 points something.
Excellent. All right. Into the Q&A section is the best place to enter these questions so I can keep track of everything better. So Ashley said, I heard that dementia was considered type 3 diabetes. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. There was a proposal for that, just because there's so many metabolic problems, diabetes problems, with brain problems from diabetes, but it's not really that people have said that. Anyway, type 3 diabetes, just because it's so common, and some people don't have high blood sugar and already get dementia.
What's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's?
Well, Alzheimer's is one form of dementia. There's many different types of dementia. Dementia of the Alzheimer's type is a very specific type of dementia that really before required a diagnosis by biopsy of the brain. You actually had to see something called neurofibrillary tangles in the brain. There's other kinds of dementia, Lewy body dementia, there's metabolic dementia. So there's multi-infarct dementia. People that get multiple strokes, they can get a dementia. So there's different reasons for having dementia. Alzheimer's has become like the name for dementia, even though it really isn't the only one.
What's the latest with how different chemicals, like let's say in diet soda, there's different sweeteners or different chemicals. Like which one of those affect the brain the most in a negative way?
Oh, that's hard to say. There are, because a lot of those artificial sweeteners are neurotoxic as well. So it's not a simple thing. But if we're looking at diabetes and the dementia due to metabolic problems, insulin resistance, the one that has the sweetest taste. So because the more the higher the sweet taste, the more insulin that's produced, and the more insulin resistance you get. So diet sodas, for example, a lot of them, I think it's aspartame is about 300 times sweeter than sugar, and so you release a lot more insulin with aspartame compared to sugar, and so you're going to get more. You're more likely to get dementia from that.
Okay. John says, I've been on your products for many years, but my sugar is still 8.5. Why?
Okay, I have a good idea about that. So 8.5 is equivalent to around 200 in the United States. So that level of sugar is pretty high. And so what's happening here is that the products are for support, and they can be miraculous for people who are deficient. Like if you had chromium deficiency and you had diabetes because of chromium deficiency, then you would start taking the product, and all of a sudden, boom, you wouldn't have diabetes anymore. Your blood sugar would be normal, and you didn't have to change your diet or anything. And that is, some people have called us and said, yeah, that's what happened. But if that's not your issue, then the purpose for like Synachroma, for example, is to support the program that you're doing, and the program is really phase one of the program. So if your blood sugar is that high, um, it's really unlikely that you could be on phase one of the program and eating 20 grams of carbohydrates and have blood sugar that high. So either you need some tests to find out if you have type 1 diabetes, in which case that would make sense, or if you either do the test to test your insulin levels, or be much better on the phase one of the program, and be very careful how much carbs, and avoid artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, a lot of times those sneaky carbs get in, or the artificial sweeteners that can keep people, those numbers high. So, and then John also asked, what's the difference between part one and part two? I think he meant phase one and phase two of the program.
Yeah, so phase one is the detox. That's just, you're detoxing. You're toxic on sugar, and so you go off sugar. So you're only allowed 20 grams of carbohydrates a day. We chose this. This isn't the only way. People can fast and detox. There's other ways to do it. We chose this because it's something you can do. You can actually eat. You can get nutrition, and it's been studied for many years. So number one, it's palatable. It works. And it's been studied for many years, so there's no downside to it particularly. So this was the way we chose to do it in our program, and it works for most people, as you know, we've seen with a lot of people. So phase two is when you've detoxed and you've cleansed all that glucose out, and you've used up all your glycogen, and you have good insulin sensitivity, and your fasting blood glucose is between 70 and 90 every day. Then you go, okay, I'm ready. And you move to phase two, which is, okay, I've had this very limited carbohydrate diet for a while. Now I need to know where my body fits into this, what my diet, my likes, my dislikes. I can't give a prescription for everybody, because if I tell everybody, okay, you can only eat lamb and pork and rice, and you go, well, I hate rice and I hate lamb and I hate pork. Well, so that's not going to work, right? You have to choose things that you like. So this phase two is where you're individualizing the program. How does this work in your life, and how does it work for your lifestyle? And then phase three is the rest of your life. That's the way you do it for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's all found in the diabetes solution kit in there if you look that up for more info. Brian asks, is dementia reversible?
Dr. Dale Bredesen from UCLA wrote a book called The End of Alzheimer's. And it really isn't the end of Alzheimer's. It is the end of metabolic dementias if it's caught early enough. And that's where the issues are, the issues that people have had with his book saying it's, Alzheimer's is going to be a thing of the past, is because if you catch it early enough, you can, but they left out people who are too far gone. He says it's kind of like being on a hill, and as they go down the hill, it's really a lot harder to get them back up the hill. If they're barely on the edge, then it's really easy to bring them back up. So it's how much damage is done to the nervous system, how much the brain has shrunk, because a lot of function you may not get back. So as far as reversible, yes, that's a qualified yes. Of it depends on how far along you've progressed.
All right. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. Q&A. There we go. All right. So Tim asked, what happens if I miss a meal like breakfast or lunch? Do I just ignore it?
Wow, that's actually a great idea. Missing meals is probably a really good idea. If you ate 2 meals a day every day, and you ate at 8 o'clock and 2 o'clock or something like that, that would be really healthy. In fact, there was a man way back in the 1800s that was really wealthy, super wealthy, and he got fat and he got sick. He married a younger woman than him, and he was like, he had children, and he said, "Gosh, I want to see my kids grow up." He was in his 40s, and he was already sick. So he decided that it was the food. In fact, his doctor told him it was the food. That's the all that rich food that you're eating. So he decided he was going to have like something like chicken and vegetable soup every day, 1 meal a day, and that's all he did. And when he was in his 80s, he said, "That's the best decision I ever made, is to eat 1 meal a day, just chicken soup, and because it has all the nutrients you need, and well, essentially, um, and he didn't overeat, and he was very healthy into his 80s. When 4 decades before, he wasn't healthy. So." Um, Pretty much all of the research shows the best thing you can do is skip meals, especially if you skip dinner.
Yeah. All right. Good old fasting. All right. Richard asks, how did I become insulin resistant? Was I born with it?
Oh, you were born with a genetic predisposition, because not everybody can get insulin resistant. And that's why you can have two people, living in the same house, eating the same food and everything. One of them gets insulin resistant, the other one doesn't. And then you have those guys that they eat, 5,000 calories a day. They're just eating whatever they want. They're living on pizza and hot dogs, and they're drinking sodas 5 times a day, 6 pack a day or whatever, and then beer on top of that, and then wine with dinner. And you're going, what the heck? If I ate like that, I would be obese, diabetes, heart disease. I would be, no, see, not everybody has that. People have different genetics. So in the one hand, yes, you're born with it. But on the other hand, there's something called epigenetics. And the epigenetics is your lifestyle that contributes to this. So for an example, I often use the example of the Pima tribe in Arizona that has an 80% diabetes rate. They definitely have a genetic predisposition to diabetes. Their cousins on the other side of the Mexican border have the same genetic predisposition, but they rarely have a case of diabetes. It's like they don't usually see any cases of diabetes at all. So why is it that these same genetic predisposition, one of them has like eight out of 10 are going to get diabetes, and the other one's zero? Well, it's because in Mexico, they have to grow all their own food, and they do. And so their foods are all natural. There's no processed foods. They don't have any concentrated oils, concentrated sugars, no artificial sweeteners. And of course, in America, the Inuit tribe has all of the standard American diet. And so, in a sense, yes, but then don't forget the epigenetics. That's why we have phase 1 of the program.
Good stuff. All right, here's a good question back related to the brain. I was under the impression that dementia studies are showing that current food, like coffee loaded with dairy and sugar, alcohol, certain meds, are allowing cholesterol to cross the blood-brain barrier. 25% of your cholesterol is sitting in the brain waiting to cross the BBB. So those sticky lipids keep the neurons from working properly. What are your thoughts?
The lipid, the lipoproteins, cholesterol, for example, is often made in the brain. So your cholesterol is made by your body. Every cell in your body has the ability to make cholesterol because it's essential for the functioning of the cell. And the brain is especially essential for, to have cholesterol. You've got to have enough cholesterol or you can't repair the brain. So, in a sense, yes, the lipoproteins don't need to cross the blood-brain barrier, particularly because the brain makes its own cholesterol. There's an incredible number of support cells inside the brain called astrocytes, glial cells, that give this support and make all of these substances that are needed for the brain. So, I suspect the problem is not cholesterol blocking anything up. I suspect that the cholesterol is there as a secondary thing for repair, but you can't repair because there's not enough energy. So I still think it's primarily an energy problem, and that the excess cholesterol is a secondary problem due to the lack of energy from not getting enough glucose into the brain from these being insulin resistant.
All right, we had a few questions just asking like, what are good blood sugar numbers, whether fasting or right after eating meals?
Okay, so fasting 70 to 90, or between 4 and 5 if you're in Canada, and then after a meal, if it gets up to 110, that's generally okay. If it's getting over 120, that's pretty high after a meal. They won't, a medical doctor wouldn't tell you that. Yeah, 120 after a meal, up to 150 is okay. But that's where you're starting to see insulin resistance. And so it's not a yes or no question. It's where are you on the scale? And ideally, you don't want it to go above 120-ish. And that tells you that you're not insulin resistant.
All right, Barbara said, prior to beginning this program, I was on a dairy-free, gluten-free, grain-free, bean and pea-free, and low sugar diet due to GI problems. Adding these needs into phase 1 is very difficult. Any suggestions?
Yeah, okay, that's where you individualize this kind of thing. So if whatever foods you react to, if you're allergic to foods, you just got to stay away from those and go to the foods that you can eat. So there's lists, for example, in phase 1 of foods that you can eat, and you can say, okay, I can't do the beans, I can't do this, can't do this. But I can do broccoli and cauliflower, and I can do lettuce, and I can do cabbage and I don't know, radishes. So you can pick the ones that you can do, and that's the best way to do it. It isn't something that I can tell you exactly what to eat. I can't give you an outline of what to eat. That's what the book does. It gives you a list, and you cross out the ones that you can't do and say, okay, I'll pick from these. And it's not a problem if, all you can eat is broccoli. If you have broccoli, 5 times a week because that's all you can eat, that's fine. Like the guy that lived into his 80s who was really sick in his 40s and he got better and lived into his 80s, and all he had was chicken soup, chicken vegetable soup every day. It wasn't, he didn't have a big variety of foods. So if you can't have a variety, that's okay. And if you're eating fish, and fish is really good. So.
All right, here's another good question about the brain. Ty said he had numerous brain concussions for playing Texas high school football in the 70s. He's got type 2. How can I protect my brain from dementia or Alzheimer's and type 3 diabetes?
That's a great question. So what's interesting about previous trauma to the brain is the sympathetic nervous system is what controls blood flow everywhere in your body. And when there's a bruise or something, then the blood flow has to shut off to that area so that it doesn't create a stroke, so that you don't keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. And so the autonomic nervous system closes down, has decreased blood flow to certain areas. And so to get that working again, you need parasympathetic stimulation. So stress makes it worse, and unstress makes it better. So how do you unstress? Well, unstress is stressing with control. So you do it on purpose. So if you're running, then you're stressing your body, but you're doing it on purpose. And having that purposeful stress is a really good thing. If you go to college and you're learning, then you're having that purposeful stress. And so you can protect your brain by de-stressing, by exercise, by fasting periodically. Is fasting stressful on the body? Yeah. But on the other hand, it's a purposeful stressing that suppresses adrenal hormones and helps the autonomic nervous system to function better. You can also do, and I've recommended this several times to people, a Wim Hof type program with breathing exercises and cold plunges. And so that is something that really helps you get the parasympathetic nervous system, dilation of blood vessels to help the good blood flow to your body and especially your brain.
All right, Monty, I saw your Q&A and I went to the chat and I've got it here. So Monty's been doing phase 1 for 4 months, stayed very disciplined under 20 grams of carbs the whole time, but his blood glucose readings haven't gone down at all. They're very erratic. And then there was some confusion on whether he can be in phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time to reset pancreas. He's on a lot of our supplements, hasn't lost any weight. So I'm guessing that this is like something that he probably needs more testing on, Dr. Saunders.
Yeah, that'd be the next thing. What's your insulin level? Because in this case, you have some issues here that, why isn't it working? So one is, are you not making enough insulin? That's a possibility. But the other one is you're making too much insulin and you have just severe insulin resistance. If that's the case, then that's a totally different issue than the pancreas not making enough insulin. So you need testing to find out why. Because at 4 months, that's long enough. You should have normal blood glucose. If you said you're doing the program right, then you should have normal blood glucose. And if it's not working, then there's some reason for that.
Yeah. So the insulin test is the main test to look for?
Yeah, insulin and C-peptide.
C-peptide, okay. And so what would be your guess? Like, what do you see that happens a lot with people that are having this issue? Is their insulin level going to be too high? And then what do they typically need to do differently than phase 1 or phase 2?
Yeah, so in this case, this is someone who says, I haven't lost any weight. So I'm assuming he's probably overweight and wants to lose weight. And if that's the case, then it's unlikely that there's too little insulin, because you have to have insulin to put weight on and to hold weight on. So it's likely that there's too much insulin and he's very insulin resistant. So being insulin resistant, you have to look at other possibilities. Some people, and I've had this happen, of a guy that was doing a ketogenic diet and he was not losing weight, his blood sugar was not going down, and he was just eating a ton of protein. And a lot of people don't realize that protein is the second best way to increase your insulin. So somebody who's doing phase one, and we don't specify this because we have to be able to individualize it, but that's why you come on the webinar, right? So we can give you some thoughts. A high protein diet can cause a continuation of the insulin resistance, and it will prevent you from getting your insulin resistance down. So I had somebody like that, and he just had to go off meat and fish and eggs and any concentrated proteins. So it's like, oh my gosh, what do I eat? Well, you got all kinds of vegetables out there. You got spinach and broccoli and carrots and lettuce and salads and cucumbers. And so he says, rabbit food, that's all I can eat, pretty much. But that's the epigenetics. You have to work around your genes. So look for too much protein. Another one might be too much fat. So, we say you want a ketogenic diet, and that means you burn fat for energy. That means it's okay to eat fat because you're burning it for energy. But some people, because fat causes insulin resistance, some people just cannot get their insulin resistance down without cutting out the fat. So then what? Well, you have that similar problem that you can eat rabbit food for a few weeks. And then you may be surprised that it just comes down to normal when you get off protein or get off fat. And then be very careful about anything that tastes sweet. So if you have, gum, or you're taking breath mints, or putting artificial sweeteners in your coffee or tea or something like that, then that all would also cause the same problem.
Yeah, you've talked about even like stevia or monk fruit, anything that's sweet, even if it's a natural sweetener, doesn't really matter. That's just gonna, I've heard it explained like your gut is almost like another, like if it tastes sweet, like it's just gonna release the insulin, and so it's really avoiding anything and everything that's sweet. Try that you typically when would Monty see some results like that? If he cut out all sweets and did some of those things you were talking about, a week or two?
Oh yeah, within a week or two, he should definitely see results.
So try that, Monty. Hopefully that works, and just keep coming on these webinars and let us know how that goes for you. Rainey says, is a shrinking brain normal as we age, or is it something we can take action for?
Absolutely not normal. So it's so funny when I get these MRI scans and the radiologist says, brain shrinkage normal for age. And I'm like, no, that's not normal. No, your brain should not shrink. You should keep your brain. In fact, if you do an MRI scan, like a focused MRI scan, and then you pick up something different, like learning a new language or learning to play the piano, and you get really good at playing the piano. You can play a Rachmaninoff piece, from memory. And you can actually measure the enlargement of those areas of the brain where you learn that piece, where you get muscle memory. It's not really muscle memory; it's actually in your brain, but your brain will actually grow as you learn. So don't ever think that your brain has to shrink as you get older. It shrinks because of passive entertainment. I think the primary reason for shrinkage is passive entertainment.
All right. Follow-up question on the insulin. What is a normal insulin level?
Okay, good question. Normal should be around 5 on a fasting specimen. Don't do it postprandial, unless you want to know how high it goes up. But it should be around 5. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there. Less than 10 is considered normal. But remember, it's on a scale. And so the optimum range is somewhere in that 3 to 6 range.
All right. How can a person get off metformin?
Talk to your doctor about getting off metformin. It's actually not hard. Once you start on phase 1 and your blood sugar starts dropping low, then just tell your doctor that your blood sugar is starting to get into the low range, and you probably don't need the medication anymore.
All right, Delbert is having some trouble staying asleep at night. He wakes up 3 or 4 times. The doctor wants to prescribe trazodone to sleep better. Is that good to take?
Trazodone is a tricyclic antidepressant that's often used for sleep. It's not really indicated for sleep, but some people like it. Makes them really drowsy because it has an antihistamine effect. Because of the effect on the antihistamine, that's okay. But I don't use it because it also inhibits acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is what's required for memory. So you tend to lose memory easily when on those medications, like tricyclics. So I try to avoid them. They can also cause dry mouth and dry eyes. So I try to avoid them. If you're waking up at night, find why you're waking up at night. So you're getting to sleep and then you wake up, and then you go back to sleep, and you wake up, you go back to sleep, and it may take a while to go back to sleep. If that's the issue, then instead of using medication, find out why that's happening. I mean, are you getting up because you have to pee at night several times? And is it a urine problem, or is it something else? So finding out what it is.
So we've done a few different webinars in the past that talk about sleep. So if you want to go to, and this is for everyone, go to bartonwebinar.com. And that'll link to our YouTube channel where we've got all 200 plus of our episodes loaded there. And then just go to that channel and search the keyword that you're interested in. So sleep, and it should come up with the different episodes. And then you can learn about all the other different things that Dr. Saunders has taught about sleep as well. So that could be helpful. All right. Huey wants to know, will Korean ginseng help reduce blood sugar level?
You know what? That's interesting. It might. So remember Joe was saying that that stress by itself can cause diabetes, that there are people who have high blood sugar and technically have diabetes, and they don't have insulin resistance, and they're not really diabetic. There's just stress diabetes. Well, if you're one of those that has some component of diabetes due to stress, then what happens is the Korean ginseng can lower that cortisol level, because it's an adaptogen that helps your adrenal glands adapt to stress. So if you have a lower cortisol level, then you're going to have less insulin resistance, and you're going to and you may have lower blood sugar. That's a possibility.
Mm-hmm. I forgot to mention, there's a coupon code that you can use if you go to bartonwebinar.com or on bartonnutrition.com. If you enter the coupon when you're checking out, coupon code is webinar25, and you'll save 25% off the bottom, like the already discounted prices on there. So any of the products on our page, you can save that 25% off. That's just kind of a special coupon we have for our webinar attendees as a thank you for being part of our community. And so let's talk about
that's the one I use when I order stuff.
Well, there's a better one than that for you, Dr. Saunders, as a part of the team. We can get you. But so Joby, I like your name. That's also my name, Joby. Is there a supplement, and maybe you could talk about, are there any supplements that we currently have, or I think we have one that's almost delivered to the warehouse, the omega-3. Is there a supplement that one can take for memory loss? And then what about the advertisement for Prevagen?
Okay, for memory loss, the best way to handle memory loss is not taking supplements specifically. But if that's the cause, then that might be really useful. So you could take. There are several different supplements. B vitamins mostly are used for that. There's something called choline, phosphatidylcholine, which can be very useful also. And let's see, phosphatidylcholine. B1 is sometimes very useful. And B3. B3 is niacinamide. And I've had people actually get better from that. Their memory improves. With B12, I often use injections. Anyway, so yeah, what was the other question was?
Prevagen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does Prevagen help with that, or what does that do?
Prevagen is a supplement that's supposed to be for memory also. I don't know what's in Prevagen. Let me look it up.
Okay. Yeah, so we do have like our Nervala product has B1, the benfotiamine, and that's for neuropathy, diabetic neuropathy, nerve pain, numbness, tingling. Also has the alpha lipoic acid in it, so that might be helpful. But I don't think we have any. Yeah, I think the fiber greens might have some other B vitamins in it. I don't think we have anything with choline in it though. So
yeah, no.
Yeah.
The Prevagen is supposed to be for Alzheimer's. It has an ApoE supplement with vitamin D. And it can be helpful for people who have that issue.
All right, William's got a good question. So he doesn't always get to eat regular meal times. Do I need to eat 3 meals a day?
Oh, thank you for asking. The answer is no. In fact, the fewer meals you eat a day, the better off you are. So 1 meal is better than 2, and 2 is better than 3, and 3 is better than 4, and 4 is better than 5. And so in nutrition schools, they're still teaching, even after all the research, they're still saying, eat 5 small meals a day with snacks in between so you never have an empty stomach. And so the nutritionists come out of nutrition school saying, eat 5 small meals a day with snacks in between so you never have an empty stomach. But that is so misguided. That's the worst advice you can give to a human being besides put a gun to your head and pull the trigger. I just can't imagine anything worse. And so fewer meals is better. So if you ate 1 meal a day, even if it's a big meal, eating 1 meal a day is so much better than eating 2 meals a day.
Yeah, all right. Let's see here. We got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get to the questions that are most common here, or maybe that haven't been asked on other webinars. So, Okay, I'm in Canada and I'm having trouble getting the doctors to add the C-peptide and the insulin test. I don't have my own doc, but I'm using virtual clinics. What can I say to these doctors to be able to have these tests?
There are other options. So if you've asked and they say no, try another doctor. start doctor shopping around till you find someone who's willing to order the test for you. But there's another option. There are a few companies now, lab companies, that you can order any test through the lab company. They send you a little kit, and you get your blood drawn at a local lab or whatever from a phlebotomist, and then so you can order the test yourself, pay for it yourself, and that might be a way. And I don't know if they have that in Canada. I know they have several in the United States.
All right. So Monty, just a real quick follow-up on that. He said he's not eating any sugar, no diet drinks. Sounds like nothing sweet. So, but he does eat some meat. So he's thinking maybe he'd cut back a little bit on the meat then. And so, and then his question was, do I stay on phase 1 and 2 at the same time? So I don't think there might be a little confusion on what that means.
Well, phase 1 is when you're detoxing. Phase 2 is when you're adding things in. So no, just do phase 1. Just phase 1. Just take out everything that allow your body to cleanse from the sugar.
Yeah. So phase one is 20 grams of carbs. And this, so another question is net carbs. So net means you can reduce the fiber, because fiber counts as a carb, but it doesn't get digested. So if it's, let's say you're at 25 grams of carbs, 5 of those grams are fiber, then you're actually at 20 grams of net carbs. So just to clarify that. Phase two is if you're at 40 grams of net carbs or under. So what Dr. Saunders is saying is stay in phase one, 20 grams of carbs, and then that until we get those numbers where they should be. So, all right, one more question here. Back to the Q&A. Oh, let's see. Okay, John, any hazard of taking 3 or 4 different supplements at a time? I'm currently taking Cinechroma, berberine, turmeric, and Nervala with breakfast or immediately after. Any reason not to take all 3 or 4 at the same time?
No, you can take them at the same time. You can spread them out. You don't have to spread them out. You can take them at the same time. It's essentially food is what these are, nutrients. These are food. Just like, if you're eating broccoli, you're getting magnesium and potassium and sodium and sulforaphanes and protein, and like it's that kind of thing. So yeah, you can add those in. They're good.
All right, and the last one. Can you eat too much salad at one serving if it's all vegetables?
No, as a matter of fact, I came to the conclusion once I had a bowl full of salad. It was a big bowl full of salad, and I started eating it. And my jaws got sore before I got full. So I don't think, I think people lose weight eating salad just because they get tired of eating before they can get enough calories to actually live on. So no, you can't eat too much salad.
Do you have any parting words before you go, Dr. Saunders, just to wrap this up as far as the brain health and diabetes and all that?
Yeah, I do. Keep your brain active. So I didn't talk about this before, but I think if you learn new things, if you're doing stuff like learning how to play the piano or learning a new language, if you're keeping your brain active, it will keep functioning. And there are cases of, there was when they first, I used to work at the Brain Research Institute at UCLA, and where they store all the brains, like Einstein's brain and everybody's brain, they just store brains if people are willing to donate them. And so when they found out about Alzheimer's, they started testing all these brains, and then they go to the family and say, hey, your grandma had Alzheimer's disease. What was she like? Oh, she was fine till the day she died. She was sharp as a tack. But pathologically, her brain showed under the microscope Alzheimer's disease. And so they figured out that when people keep their minds active, then whatever's being used is going to be perpetuated, and you're going to continue with that. It's when it's not being used that your body gets rid of it. So keep your brain active. If you really want to have good brain health, I can't stress activity, even exercise. If you're running, your brain is improving. So exercise, brain activity.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Saunders.
Right.
We'll let you go. Take care. Right. See you next time. Bye. All right. I will stay on for a little bit here. I'll try to answer a few more questions that came in that I might be able to help with. But yeah, just an encouragement. There's a few things that came up that, as far as as you age, no, that's just normal. What happens? The doctors will tell you, yeah, you're just getting old. Well, that's actually not really a thing. You're only as old as you feel, I think. So I'm 50 years old, just turned a month or so ago, and I'm playing hockey. I just started playing hockey in my 40s, and I just don't let people tell me that 50 is just a number. Who cares? You might be 80 or 90. Who cares? You just keep living. You keep doing what you do. And so he mentioned exercise at the end there, and I think the more that I'm realizing, being active and breathing is super important. When you're exercising, part of what's happening is you're breathing more oxygen. So even if you're doing breath work, you don't necessarily have to be pumping iron and running a marathon, but if anything that you're doing that can make you breathe more, like breathing in more oxygen, and you can just do that, like do some breath work, find some YouTube videos or whatever, or a class that does breath work and just breathing in, like oxygenating your body. That's so healthy for you as well. So these are some things that we teach through the webinars and through the Diabetes Solution Kit as well. I forgot to mention, we have another webinar every week. It's on heart health. So Dr. Saunders usually comes on Thursdays at noon, but tomorrow we actually have to cancel tomorrow's due to scheduling conflict. I don't remember exactly what happened, but Leslie asked me to mention that. So there's no heart health webinar tomorrow. Just to encourage you, if you're going to be a part of that, you can still register and be notified for the next one. It'll be next week then on Thursday at noon Central Time. And then we've got the webinars recorded on YouTube that you can go and watch the replays. A lot of really good information about heart health. And I just love Dr. Saunders, how he teaches like the real stuff. Like this is the really, like he cuts through all the fat and the different things that we're taught or we are led to believe through, traditional medicine, but he's studying the things that are actually working and seeing like, hey, your blood pressure numbers are actually healthy if they're at this level, not at this level, and cholesterol levels as well. Like the doctors will tell you like, you need to be at this low number for cholesterol, but it's actually like what they're not telling you is the studies say, no, it's actually better to be a little higher. And so I love learning that real information from him. And then, so that's in the heart health, the Healthy Heart Solution Kit as well, another product of ours that you can find on bartonwebinar.com as well, or bartonpublishing.com. So, yeah, just a lot of good stuff. Being on these Zoom calls is super valuable. And hey, we don't know how long we're going to be able to be doing this. Like even there's some funny stuff going on with YouTube where they're changing their terms and conditions where you can't say anything nowadays you can't give health information that contradicts what the World Health Organization, the WHO, is saying. So we might not be able to be on YouTube much longer, might have to switch platforms here. Who knows? Like it's a concern. They just made this change in the last week or two. We had one of our videos banned just this past week too, because the virus information was being talked about, and apparently that was misinformation. So yeah, things like that are going on in our world. Just to have Dr. Saunders available and answering questions is super valuable. That reminds me, one resource that we offer that a lot of people don't know about, we don't talk about it too much, but it's our membership site called homecuresthatwork.com. homecuresthatwork.com. Check that out. That is like, I like to think of it like our remedy library. So every month, Dr. Saunders has been writing a really detailed, informative article for our readers, for our members, that talks about all sorts of things. So we've started publishing that in January 2009. So how many years is that? That's like 15 years now. I think we're getting up. It'll be 15 years in January. So 15 times 12 is like 180 articles now that he's written about all sorts of different health topics. And so like being a member of homecuresthatwork.com, it's like if at any time, and that's private, like YouTube has no control over that. Like, once you're a member, you've got all access to everything that he's taught. So I would check that out if you want to learn about any health condition that you might have. He's taught a lot about diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, acid reflux, thyroid issues, brain issues, pretty much anything you can think of, joint pain. I mean, 200 topics basically. And so it's a wealth of information. Highly recommend that. And again, like the more that you can study and learn yourself about your own health and really being your own doctor, and with the right knowledge, is super important. Because hey, what happens if you all of a sudden don't have internet access or something like that happens? Then you're not able to learn anymore. Like yeah, you're going to want to have this knowledge built up that you're studying on your own. And you can buy buy our reports, get those printed versions as well. I don't know, I'm starting to sound like the apocalypse is coming here now. So I'm not quite going to go that extreme, but hey, thanks for staying on with me here. I'm going to wrap up here in a minute. Let's see, Velo and Barbie, hello, good to see you guys again. Let's see, you had a question earlier, I might have missed that. So we've been in the program 15 to 16 months, and we've had nothing but success. We have changed doctors a couple of times as they continue to prescribe metformin, even though our results have been great. A1C has been in the 6s for both of us. What are your thoughts? So Barbie and Velo, I'm gonna have to have Dr. Saunders get to you next time. Sorry I didn't see that in time. It was posted at 1:58 though, so not a lot of time for me to see that, but you guys are awesome. Love having you guys on here. And if you want to watch some awesome testimonial videos from some of our customers, check out Barbie and Velo on our YouTube channel, the testimonial there that they shared. It's really encouraging to hear other people's stories and to see what things have been overcome, and to realize, like, hey, like Velo likes to say, if we can do it, anybody can do it. That's their saying, their phrase that they say all the time, and that's true. Like, if they can do it, anybody can do it. And it's really just simple. It's like understanding what actually works, what's going on, different tests that you can take, and understand what's happening with your body. So thanks. Somebody mentioned Rumble. That's top of my list for what I'm thinking, that the platform that we might have to go on. So I got to study that a little bit more. And yeah, the link is homecuresatwork.com in the chat. Thank you, Ryan. Shout out to our one of our web developers in the back end server dude, and other sorts of goodies. What else here? I think we're gonna just end it here. I gotta get going anyways, but thanks for joining us, everybody. Leslie should be back next time. No heart webinar tomorrow, but go to bartonwebinar.com and sign up for that if you want to be on that for next week as well. And thanks for joining us. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you next time. Take care, and God bless you.